I told Kara I don't need the podium because I don't know, just kind of get lost behind it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys what we've been finding inside the redoubt. Now the redoubt, I actually did the calculations this morning. The redoubt that Governor Andros told the Huguenots that they had to build appears to be about 78 feet east to west and 75 feet north-south. And it has a bastion on the northeast corner. And then it actually, I'm not sure yet, but it might have a bastion on the southwest corner. This summer we actually found the southwest corner. Okay, yeah, a redoubt is basically a stockaded area. Governor Andros told them when they bought the property from the Esopus Indians that they had to have a fortified redoubt that they could retire to in case they got attacked. Because Andros had been dealing with that in New England when he was governor in New England. So it appears that what they did when they first got here was, I think they actually built a couple houses first because there's something coming off the earthfast house that gets cut by the redoubt line. So it means that the earthfast house was on the lawn between the Bevier house and the Deo house first, and then they put the redoubt up. And we've been looking for the west and the south wall for probably several years now, and I'm kind of getting close with nothing. And the problem is when you get down near the Deo house, there are electrical lines, there's sewer lines, there's water lines, and then there's a bunch of big maple trees that have a lot of big roots, and it makes it really difficult to find little dirt stains in the soil. In the last 3 years ago, in 2016, I just decided, hey, let's do something in front of the, to the south of the fort. So we started opening up some squares here, and so this is 2016. I have a group from each year. And what I wanted to do was find out what was inside the redoubt. And the redoubt here goes, this first step right here on the porch, this is about where the redoubt, the north wall is. Question?
Redoubt.
Yeah, it's just a fortification. Yeah, it's like a stockade.
How tall is it, John?
Probably 12 to 15 feet, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I know they have specs back then. The specs are that you normally have one or two entrances. You have a walkway on the inside, which I think we found out here. And then basically you have to have at least a bastion on alternate corners, so you can fire down the walls in case you're attacked. Some of them have 4 bastions. The really, the budget ones probably have one at each end. There's a stockaded or fortified house down in Maryland called Cliffs Plantation that has a house, barns on the inside. It's got a square stockade and it's got a bastion on each corner. And that's just to fortify a house, garden areas, and then barn and keep all your critters inside so that you don't get attacked. So I'm thinking this might be something similar, but on a slightly larger scale. So in 2016, I said, okay, let's open up some stuff here and see what's going on. And because I want to see if there are any buildings inside the redoubt. And what we talked about a couple years ago was peeling up the road in New Paltz. I'm sorry, in Main Street in here. I'm sorry, within the district. And that's why those posts are in, and everything's kind of chained off. So we were thinking about pulling all that up, but that hasn't really come about yet. So I'm hoping that that does come about soon. So here we are opening up some 2-meter squares. That sign should look really familiar. And this is 2016, so what I did was 2-meter squares with a 2-meter break, and then another 2-meter square in between here. And these are just some action photos. And one of the things that I think is kind of a little bit of a problem with finding the redoubt over along this wall over here is probably the fact that you've got a whole bunch of trees back here behind me. It's very possible that it might occur somewhere out in here in terms of if I start to open up squares out in here, I might be able to find the west wall. We don't have a lot of the west wall at this point.
So how far back? When was the redoubt built there?
Probably between, I'm thinking 1678 to 1680. It probably would have been one of the first things they built here because one of the conditions that Andros laid out for them was that they had to have a redoubt to retire to in case they got attacked. When you think about it, if you were living on Huguenot Street here in 1678, when they first get here, the only way that you're going to get any kind of help is to somehow get back to Rosendale or back into Kingston or Hurley to get people to come back to help you if you get attacked. So it's probably going to be about an hour and a half to get to Kingston, and then assembling everybody is going to take several hours, and then for them to get back is going to need to be more time. So it's going to be kind of a lengthy procedure. And that was without Route 32. So, so these are some other action photos. This is as we get deeper and deeper, and what we're getting here is just a lot of little rocks and stuff like that. What they're finding is they're deep enough now that they're starting to get some soil stains. What we have in these particular squares right here from 2016 is a row of post molds in some of these squares, indicating that I think the edge of the redoubt should be out here. There are probably structures on the inside that were built on the north, right up against the north wall, which is kind of common inside fortifications. They have a walkway above, and then they'll just build things right up against the wall and put a roof on them, kind of like a shed roof. These are some of those lines. This is Nate, this is 2016, Nate was my crew chief in 2017. So we have these kind of like long stains. Some of these that we can figure out, some of these I don't know what they are. There are a couple of these that just, you can see where this one is ending, you can see where this one is ending. These are kind of the problematical ones. This is a little less problematical. So in this case, north is to the right. I'm standing right about on the sidewalk looking down into one of the squares. And what they're excavating is they have what's called a beam slot right here. They're excavating a beam slot right here. And this is basically a stone that's been put in because there's a beam slot going this way. So we're inside probably a house. They have floor joists sitting in the soil going this way, and then they have another floor joist coming this way. In fact, this could even be the edge of a structure, I'm not sure. We're also going to get a beam slot going right underneath his legs right there. But this is kind of what you do when you want to keep a floor joist out of the soil. You basically dig a little hole, you put a rock on it, and you set it on it, and it keeps it kind of up and dry a little bit. I don't know what mattress mania is. I've always tried to figure that out. So again, this is the sidewalk is to my left. And what he's doing is taking this out, and then it makes a turn right in here also. And then you've got this, and then we've got something else up in here. We've got post molds. This is really, it's kind of difficult to figure out for two reasons. The first is that we're only getting little apertures that are 78 inches on the side. And the other thing is that this is really pretty deep. This is getting down to almost close to 40 inches, if not 45 inches. So by the time students work down to that point, it's usually the last week of the field school, and we're kind of in like crunch time to try to figure out what's going on. Oh, the other thing that we found right about where he's digging right in here is a hearth tile, a fragment of a red earthenware hearth tile, which means that these structures probably also had at least some kind of fireplaces in them, or some kind of hearth with some kind of situation for heat and cooking.
Joe,
Yeah.
what kind of structures would they be building inside?
These are probably, well, when we show you some of the other photos, they look like what's called earth-fast houses, or what the French call poteaux-en-terre, which is when you dig a trench, you stick a bunch of posts in, and you get them all about the same height, then you cut them all off, put a plate in, and then basically start to cut out windows and doors. And the other thing about almost every square in here is we're getting turned lead or lead caming for lead glass windows. So if you're familiar with the north wall of the Gene Hasbrook house, where you have those replacement glass windows with the little lead caming in them, almost all of these structures in 1678 to 1680 or thereabouts probably had these to let the light in. And they probably had shutters, kind of like the Gene, except that they weren't built of stone, they're built of wood. So here's that one trench right in here. She's working in, that other one comes through here, and then there's another probably floor joist coming this way. And again, it's kind of difficult to tell if this is probably the south wall of something going this way. There's a little gap in between here. Then there's something going this way with a floor joist. And again, it's only towards the end of each summer that we start to get down to that point where we can actually, you can see the original yellow soil here that hasn't been dug out, where we start to find this stuff at the end. This summer I tried to really push them to dig faster, and we did in one particular square get down earlier than I had in the past. The only problem is in that square there was nothing at the bottom, except for some little post mold thingies that were not this kind of stuff. So I don't know. This is what happens with students. Sorry about that. These are some action photos in the lab in 2016. You can see, and I'll show you another shot of this. There's Nate washing. You can see some of these boxes right here. There are a lot of faunal remains right out in front of the to the south of the fort. As you work your way down, we work in 10 centimeter levels, which is 4 inches. Every 10 centimeter level in a 2 meter square, which is about that big, has a bag of bones about this big. That's how many faunal remains are being whipped out the door of the fort in probably the 18th century. So we've got to work our way through that. We have a lot of cow bones, a lot of turtle bones. Probably a French turtle soup, I'm not sure, but we have a lot of turtle bones and carapace, and we have plastron fragments on the other side. So what Nate's doing there is washing, just kind of throwing these into flats, and then we just let everything dry.
So what you're saying is that turtle soup was popular?
Yeah, and they're probably, they didn't look like, when I looked at shell fragments, they didn't look like snapper, they looked like big, like mud turtles, or something kind of like that. Yeah, and there's a lot of them. Sometimes when we're working in some of these squares that I showed you, people are just like picking out turtle fragments and just putting them right in the back, because you can just dig them right up, they pop right out of the soil. So this is just another shot. That's just one context of bones. We've got some yellow bagged artifacts here, some stuff drying. Clams and oysters are in the upper levels. There's another shot. This is 2017. So where our backdirt piles are, so this is where the other guy was with the that little stone in there for the floor joist. We had a gap. We have another square here. And so what we've been doing is excavating alternate squares and putting the backdirt piles on those. Ruben, who was my crew chief last summer, is going to be finding the extension of that floor joist going right through here. These guys are going to be finding all kinds of stuff up in here. And what is it? Brian is going to be finding more of that over there. So what we're getting here is a line of post molds going right through here. We're getting something coming through here and then going south. And what are they getting? Over here, they're not getting anything that's Huguenot, they're mostly getting Native American stuff. And then this particular square right here, a lot of mystery features. Features that, I don't know, they might be woodchucks. Because they're not doing anything that people like to do, they're doing things that woodchucks like to do. And when we started here in 1998, right over in this corner, just off to the side over here, one of the first squares students excavated, we had this big feature, and I was like, no, what is this? And we kept making turns and stuff like that, and then we got down to the bottom, we realized it was probably a woodchuck hole. But they excavated really, really well. So, what else we got going there? Okay, yeah, so I think, was it last, not this summer, but the previous summer, we also had like a flatbed truck in there to do something with a boom on it. So I got up on the truck and I took this photo. This particular square out here, Kara started 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago, and she started that, and then basically this last summer we had 15 students come up from the American Museum of Natural History. Aged, I think most of them were like 16, 17, and 18. And so they put a real dent in this square. I think they went down about three contexts, about 30 or 40 centimeters. And so we still have to finish that up probably this summer. Again, they're getting Native American stuff, they're getting historic Huguenot stuff, and it'll be interesting to see what's down at the bottom. There's some other action photos here. And this is actually probably a little bit higher up, maybe. Yeah, so the sidewalk is like right here. The other thing is that we have to be careful here because there's an electrical line going underneath here for that post, which I've seen archaeologically. Luckily, we didn't hit it with a shovel. And then, of course, this right here has a large concrete foundation underneath it. So we have to kind of stay away from that because if you get really close to it, like if I did this square, it might like topple over and fall on a student. This is, again, this is kind of like a little bit out of order. This is just kind of like, you can see how dark the soil is. This is the result of all of the soil being thrown out of the fort over the years. And I might also add, right over here is the edge of the stockade, the redoubt. It comes right up along this tree, makes a turn right here and goes right underneath here. And the bastion is right out there on the lawn, kind of like where that little walkway is. So if you walk from the garage up to the DuBois Fort, you're walking right along the edge of the northern portion of the bastion.
Now, bastion, explain what that is.
A bastion, let's imagine you have a square,
Right.
and then at either end, at alternate corners, you have a smaller square, which is composed of a little firing platform. And again, the way that this particular fortification is built, they dug trenches, they put posts in ranging about from this big to about this big, maybe, as Susan asked, maybe 12 to 15 feet high. It's got a walkway on the inside. And they did that first, and the measurement that I figured out this morning is like, it's like 78 feet wide. So it goes about 12 feet on the inside, this side of the Huguenot Street, and then all the way out into the lawn. And then it's 75 feet long. And then at either corner of it, you have a firing platform that's elevated, which is also a square. And the construction method here is really interesting because they dug the trenches, and the one that we found this summer is really deep. They stood the post up in it to make the fortification. And then they did something different at the two corners. And as I said, I think previously, it's almost kind of like an afterthought. They went out and they dug individual holes for the posts and then stuck them right in. So instead of digging a trench, they're just basically digging a hole, putting a post in, filling it in. So you've got like probably, I think it's about, the northern portion of the redoubt comes right across here, right underneath the little ramp right there underneath the sidewalk. That's why I'm kind of interested in this area right here because it's really difficult to figure out what's going on. The other thing is that back behind me there is a huge maple tree. Going back further, there are a whole bunch of locust trees and large pine trees which have roots about this big, and it's always kind of forcing the soil in different directions. And the other thing about it is that it's difficult to get students to work around roots because basically some of these squares, and I think I might have a couple of these in a different photograph, we're trying to keep the roots intact so that basically the trees won't die. So I have students kind of like, as contortionists, working through some of these things, moving around underneath the roots, lifting them up and wedging them up and then digging underneath them and then we backfill. So this is one of the things we found in 2017. This, again, here's the corner of the porch. Everybody's taking photographs of it because that little rock pile is so photogenic. This is actually the foundation for probably a smokehouse very similar to the one that's back behind the fort. There's a little stone and brick smokehouse out there that we keep our tools in on the field school. In I think it's 2003 or 4. We excavated a square right here and actually found another portion of this with brick in it, with brick dust, and with a lot of charcoal. And so this whole area here was just filled with brick debris and stone debris. So we really slowly took it out, and this is what remains, which kind of looks like that. So this is probably the corner of it, and it goes this way, and then it comes this way, and it's kind of close to the. First of all, the light over here, and when we opened up the square, probably about 10 or 12 years ago, we actually got the electrical line, which is why I want to stay away from that. So this particular structure is probably, I'm thinking, based on the bricks, maybe about around the 1820s. They're not really early bricks, they're not really late bricks, they're just basically hand-struck bricks. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting to think about how many structures were on Huguenot Street in the course of several hundred years. Question?
If you do get the opportunity to bring up the road and the sidewalk, what do you expect to?
No, so we probably leave the sidewalk, right, Kara? So, well, you need to have, Kara's in charge. No, Josephine too, yeah. I think you probably want to leave the sidewalk because it makes it more accessible for handicapped folks.
Well, I mean, if you get to dig up the road, like you said, you mind that's why it's being cordoned off there?
Yeah, that was the original idea. If we could get somebody like Dave Brewers in and peel it all back, and then basically we talked about putting down some kind of like grass and composite fabric so that you can kind of decide where you want to be and then open up some squares.
And what would you expect to find? That's what I was asking.
Yeah, probably more of the structures on the inside. I mean, when you think about it,
Inside.
on the inside, yeah. I mean, because the underneath the road is right on the inside of the redoubt. So that's a really big area in terms of square footage that doesn't, or square meterage, that doesn't have any probably tree roots in it because the trees are pretty far away. It has been protected also by the road in the 18th and 19th century, just additional buildups. And I think there'd be some very, very cool stuff underneath it. And I think structurally it would probably be better than, in terms of the post molds holding together, probably better than on the lawn because it's protected by the macadam. And of course there is, on the eastern side of the street, there is the sewer and water line that goes right along the edge of it. So that's going to impact things. But overall, I don't know, I think it would be very, very cool.
Untouched.
What's that?
It's untouched.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that was
That's what you're always looking for.
Last spring I did a presentation up in Syracuse called "Why Don't We Do It in the Road?" And it was basically, the idea was, I showed everything in terms of where we're finding stuff, and then basically where the potential was for things underneath the road, and that was kind of the main idea there. But in terms of funding, it just didn't happen. So at some point, maybe it will. This is one of the other things that we found right in front of the DuBois Fort. I thought I'd throw this in here. This is a feature that kind of goes like that, and then there's another one over here. There's something going on here. This is what a prehistoric feature looks like under about almost 40 inches of soil right out in front of the fort. So from here, and again, you can see the soil structure here. You've got kind of like an original soil right in here, and then you've got all this debris that's being thrown out, all these different modelings that are being thrown out, probably from the excavation of the basement, the basement from the DuBois Fort. And so this is basically a prehistoric feature. That's what it looks like when it gets excavated. And we had, this summer we had a number of these. This is actually from 2017. This is actually a feature that's got, all of these rocks in here are artifacts. And we have an almost whole pot out of this. We have probably about 60 or 80 different kinds of nutting stones, grinding stones, anvil stones, and that kind of stuff, as well as knives. And do we have another shot here on this? Oh, yeah, there we go. Most of these in here are artifacts. That's going to be filled with artifacts, and all that's coming out here. And again, these guys they don't know it yet, but right where she's kneeling, they're going to find one of the walls from one of the structures inside the redoubt. And there's, see how nice they work around the roots? And you can see that every photo's got roots in it. It's really nice. This is 2017 in the lab. And at this particular point, we've moved from this really awful little building on the far side of the campus, which is called the South Classroom Building, where we were sharing a geology lab, to our new digs in Worcester Hall. So this is more state-of-the-art, which is really, really nice. We still use soda and beer flats for washing them, but this is really, really nice compared to where we were. And this is 2017. This is Ruben, who's my crew chief last summer. What's interesting about these two is she just got into Syracuse a couple weeks ago, and she just got into SUNY Binghamton for grad school. Okay, so this is, okay, so there's the sidewalk, there's the post again. These are some of the squares that actually have that line of post molds. So this line right here is going to come here, it's going to make a turn. We have a big post mold in here, not sure what's going on with that. And so we have this line going all the way through all of these squares, all the way over here, and then it's going to make a turn. I think that's Ruben's hat maybe. And basically it goes this way. So we have a whole series of post molds, probably for a house, I'm thinking to the left or the north, and then maybe something over here going further to the south also. And again, when you're just looking down into these little apertures, each one is 78 inches on the side, you're just seeing what you can here. But over the course of 3 years, we've kind of started to put this together. So that's what it looks like. You have this is a trench. We have post molds coming across. And again, some of these are not in really good order. There's a huge one right here. There's another one right here. I think I took this prematurely, but there's another really large one here. So what they're doing is they're digging a partial trench. They're digging out individual post holes, plunking these things in, and then filling it in. And what goes in between all this stuff is you basically weave branches and wet saplings, and then you go down to the Wallkill River, you get some clay, and you smudge it all together, so you have wattle and daub. And that's what the walls are in these early structures. It's what we see across the lawn, right over here, on the other side over here, in the earth-fast house, we see the same thing, with really large posts about this big, and then smaller posts in between, where they're kind of weaving. I mean, when you think about it, when you cut down a stick that's about this big around, it's still pretty whippy. If you take all the small branches off of that and then basically wet it, kind of weave it through all of the posts, and then start smudging clay in, it's going to work pretty well. In fact, when I was looking at some of the slides when I put this together, Gail, what year were you?
09.
09. Okay, so in 2009, some of the people that worked with Gail on the lawn east of the Huguenot Street, Gina Dinar and their second square found this big platform of clay just outside the redoubt wall. And I think that clay was probably brought up from the Wallkill to probably pack into the walls of some of these earth-fast houses, because there's no clay on Huguenot Street. If it's out there, it's been brought up from along the Wallkill. There is clay, like, I think about 15 or 20 feet down, but we really don't have access to that. My students don't dig that deep. So here's the better shot. Here's this is Brian's kind of working his way. The corner, the actual corner is right here. Brian's actually kind of clearing this big post off. He's got all these little guys right in here, and then we also have to come back and deal with this. So this is usually in the last couple days of the field school where they've worked their way down through almost 45 or 50 inches of soil, and then we have all of these little architectural features that we have to deal with. And that's what I've been doing over the last couple of years is, since our class starts at 6:30, I have the notes on the truck with me. I try to get here at 6, and then spend about a half an hour going over everybody's notes and making sure that their measurements are correct and the size of the post molds are all the right size, so that I have kind of like a cross-check on them. But that means that's why, like, if you get here early, I'm here earlier, apparently. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Here's the approximate location of the, I have palisaded, but it's the redoubt trench. The front porch is right in here. It kind of goes through right around here. Here's Huguenot Street. I'm sorry, that's the sidewalk. Here's Huguenot Street. And what we have are these lines of post molds. Some of them are breaking, going to the north. Some of them are kind of, can't figure them out. We've got something up in here. Got something going through here. There's the hearth tile. And then we've got this trench right here for like a beam slot. And I'm thinking, since this is kind of going up, kind of along like this, and this is about where the wall is, this would be a structure that's probably about, from here to here, probably about 2 meters, 3 meters, 5 meters, maybe 6 meters, 6, I'm just doing a quick, 6 times 3, yeah, so like 18 feet in size. So basically, you might have buildings that are built right up against the inside of the redoubt, and they might be about 18 feet long, and again, trying to figure them out is still going to be kind of difficult. I don't know what that is.
Joe, why are there so many post molds?
It's what you have to build, it's what you have to stick in the ground to build a house.
You need that, I didn't,
Well,
you
here's-
need that many.
Well, yeah, here's the other thing. When you're building with these things, the other thing you have to keep in mind is, I don't know how long these things have been here, so you might have to replace them. You're gonna have termites, you're gonna have carpenter ants, you're gonna have all kinds of critters. And you also have weather, so I don't know how long these things have been here. That's something we haven't figured out yet. Well, again, if they got here in 1678, the fort was built in 1705, literally these things could have been around for 25 years before they built the DuBois Fort and then took all this down. So some of these might actually be repairs.
But Joe, I think to describe for everyone what it actually looks like, that there's a series of posts right next to each other that create the fence. It's not like we make a fence now where we put a post every 8 feet. They're all
Yeah.
connected,
Yeah,
or
they're
they're all
all-
on the line.
Yeah, I mean, these can actually be posts right next to each other. They can be posts that have kind of like a gap between them. For the earth-fast house, there were gaps about this wide. So you basically have large posts and you have smaller posts, and then you're just kind of leaving some saplings in so that you can start to put some clay on. These, I don't know, they're more enigmatic because, first of all, they're very, very deep, and they're not as clear as the ones over on the lawn. I think the ones on the lawn are much clearer because they're a blacker soil. These are a little bit more problematical. That's why we have this little dotted line in here.
Joe, could they be prehistory?
Well,
Partially, and then partially historic?
well, yeah, there are going to be Native American post molds down there, but Native Americans didn't dig a trench and put posts in them. The other thing is all the artifacts down here in these trenches are all European.
Now, are these trenches pretty much due east, west, north, south? Were they concerned about the,
Well, okay, so north is directly at the top of this. The redoubt itself is basically a square on a north, south, east, west axis.
okay.
And so this is not really all that pretty compared to, like if this is straight, and again, this could even come up a little bit, I'm not sure, and that could just be built up against it. I mean, there's a lot I don't know yet, and there's a lot that I can tell you guys, but I can only take it so far. But again, I don't know what that thing is. And there are a couple of other things in that I think are woodchuck holes. This is where that prehistoric feature was, right here. And again, there's the stone and there's the hearth tile right there. So I'm thinking these structures probably had some kind of fireplace in them for heat or for, again, early on this might actually be a fortification that's got houses on the outside, that's also got houses on the inside. And again, that's all I can tell you at the moment. I need a crystal, actually I have a crystal ball. Okay, so these are some of the artifacts that we found. And again, this is over the last 3 years. This is a Delft. Most of these artifacts are coming out right in front of the DuBois Fort. And again, we're getting Delft. There's an old fragment of Delft that's polychrome Delft. A lot of this stuff. This is what the Huguenots are using probably from around the 1680s all the way up to 1795. And again, if I was to take all my squares, pull all of this stuff, I could probably get some either plates or bowls almost together because we have so much of this stuff. Because what they're doing is when they break on the inside or they start to crack, they just walk outside the door, whip them out into the yard. The critters are all walking around, everything gets smushed down in, and here we are a couple hundred years later. Yeah, same kind of stuff. This is stuff I used to call Staffordshire slipware, but I've had some conversations with Paul Huey, and he's suggesting that we call it combed, buff body slip decorated earthenware. So I have to go through and do a global change in my my Excel program of 30,000 pages and change that. There's a lot. Again, I have all the delts across the top. These are tin glazed buff body earthenwares, and these are just buff body earthenwares. We used to call them Staffordshire, but they're not just all from Staffordshire. So that's why I have to make that distinction.
Question.
Go ahead.
The one that was on the far right side, with the scalp things, is that carved out or is that applied?
Oh, these little guys right here.
On the right, on the right.
These?
Yeah, it almost looks as if it could be an applied,
It's in the glaze, isn't
layer.
it?
No, what they're doing is they're taking a comb and dragging it through the slip.
Okay.
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're putting on 2 different kinds of slips and then dragging a comb through.
So they're not thicker as it goes down?
Oh, no. I mean, there are some called trail slipwares where they actually have one of those things kind of like what you decorate a cake with, that thing that's,
Sure.
it's kind of like a bag. But what they've got is some of them have multiple little kind of ends in them, like little nozzles, and they can put different kinds of slips in them, or they can put the same and then squeeze it out, kind of like a bagpipe, but it's like making a cake, but decorating one of these. And then you kind of drag it across and you're trailing the slip on top of the ceramic, which we have a lot of also. This is more stuff right in front of the fort. All of these are Delft, or tin glazed earthenwares. These guys are Westerwald and Westerwald, mostly tankards. And one of the things that I'm seeing from Huguenot Street over the years is that we don't have a lot of bottle fragments. In fact, I have a student who's working on getting some of the bottle fragments back together so we can see what types they are. Mostly what these folks are using are ceramic jugs for probably dispensing alcoholic beverages at the table or just around whenever they're doing things. And they're drinking out of these stoneware tankards. Most of these are going to be about this big to about that big. They probably hold about a pint or thereabouts. And these are mostly what they're going to be drinking out of at the table or even around the yard or something like that. Because in the 17th and 18th century, people drank a lot and they drank all day long. So they're drinking rum, they're drinking whiskey, probably near beer, and then hard cider also. And so I think in terms of pocket flasks, on the whole street, I think we've only found probably 3 or 4. And those are from like 1790 to maybe about 1850. One is a Washington Taylor flask that came out in, is that 1836 when Washington died? Historians? I think it's 1836, yeah. We have one flask that has Washington on one side and they put Andrew Jackson on the other side because he was popular at that point. So we have some of those on the lawn. And then we have some little pocket flasks that you keep in your pocket. But in terms of drinking, most of them are, these are mostly the drinking vessels. They probably had pewter, which of course is going to get melted down and turned into something else. And we have a minimum of wine glasses in terms of formal wine glasses, and then some tumblers, but not a lot. So I think these are really what they're consuming beverages out of. And of course, most of these are going to be German. Most of these are going to be either English or Dutch, and possibly some French ones also. Some other artifacts from the last 3 years. Got some belt buckles. This is a really cool one, made of brass. These are gun flints. This is like, yeah, gun flints. This is a little hinge. So this is a really cool gun flint because it kind of looks like it's on the way to becoming a prehistoric projectile point, but it's actually not. It's just basically being chipped down and reused in a couple of different directions. And this is kind of like a lead counter or something. I'm not really sure. It looks like somebody took a musket ball and just squashed it out. There's some other, we have here a little counter made out of ceramic that's been chipped down, a smoking pipe called the Turk. This is not a common smoking pipe. We have 2 of these from Huguenot Street. We have one from over on the lawn between the Bevier and the Deo. And then we have this guy from right out in front of the fort. And of course, luckily we got enough pieces to get them together. And then of course some more gun flints. And then this stuff right here is called sprue, which is from making musket balls. And we have a lot of gun flints. I mean, we probably have, I think on the whole street, probably at least 100 gun flints, if not more.
Where would the bowl of that pipe be?
What's it? Oh, that
On
is
the
a
other
bowl.
side?
No, actually,
Right.
I put him down so you could actually see one side of his head. He's kind of split right down the middle. So you're actually smoking right out of his turban and then all the way down to here. The stem goes this way. And so basically you're just smoking right out of his head and his turban. That's where the bowl is. These are some of my favorite objects. These are the lead caming I was talking about. This is caming, and these guys here are all turned lead. These are just little lead fragments, probably from making, they could be for making buttons, they could be making musket balls or anything, but all these little guys right here are the turned lead that is being used to hold window glass in. So those windows, as I mentioned, on the Gene Hasbrook house on the north side, most of these structures probably have these. At the Earthfast house out on the lawn, we have this stuff. We're getting more and more of it out in front of the fort, indicating that some of these structures, the early structures, probably had some kind of casement windows. And again, for me, I get really kind of excited when I see this kind of stuff. I mean, you guys are not like doing an eye, but maybe John. But basically, these are the kind of things that, you know, are architectural that are just really, really almost enigmatic. So I can show you guys those post molds and talk about what kind of structures, but this kind of tells us that they had casement windows.
Are any of them marked? Because inside the game.
I know, yeah, I know. Paul and I have talked about that. I've been looking on the inside because the thing is, it's difficult to open them up without breaking them. It appears that a lot of the caming in the Hudson Valley doesn't have markings in it. Paul found the same thing at Fort Orange. It's more common in Canada, and it's, I think, more common down the city. John, you want to help me out there? Does any of the stuff around here have markings on it? The caming? Yeah, I know, yeah. I mean, it doesn't appear to be something popular or occurring in the Hudson Valley.
What do you mean by marked?
When they roll these things out, there's a little press where they flatten the lead out before they fold it. They have little maker's marks in there with their name. I don't know if they have dates. Initials.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's kind of rare in the Hudson Valley. In fact, I haven't seen it.
Is that kind of cold or hot? The lead?
It's probably going to be. Well, it's pretty soft. You can do it when it's cold, I think.
The captain is in the cold.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can pour it out into a strip and then basically squish it out a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah, but this stuff is really kind of fun. These are some of the other artifacts. I just took this photo because what we do when we find these now is so we don't drop them back in the back dirt or somebody doesn't drop them immediately onto the lawn, which we've had happen. We've actually had somebody drop a little seed bead into the back dirt pile while they were fumbling with it in the screen, and then everything shuts down and everybody dives into the dirt. And sometimes you just don't find it. And we've even rescreened stuff and hosed things down and we haven't found them. So as soon as we find these, I either put them on one of these little strings, or in some cases I put them on some 6-pound fishing line and then tie everything else onto it. So these right here are pretty early beads. This is actually faceted white bead. That's probably one of the early Huguenot beads. These are probably trade beads that they might have been using for trade with Native Americans, for beaver, for corn, or for any other different thing that they're getting from Native Americans, even skins or something kind of like that, or pelts. Buckle. This is a rather cool thimble because it doesn't have the cap on it. So this is one of those ones where you have to really kind of be careful when you're stabbing through the cloth because the end of your finger is not protected, so you have to really know what you're doing. And this is a little piece of bone, a little cap. And then this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
That's a Revolutionary War one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, USA. Yeah. Yeah, that's quite a bit of fun. And those are, I think, relatively rare. What's that?
They're usually not decorated.
Yeah, they're usually just a plain kind of pewter or pot metal button, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we have some very, very cool buttons on Huguenot Street. This is one of the cooler ones.
Revolutionary.
From, in front of the freer, we have one button that matches two buttons over on the lawn between the Bevier and the Deo house that has King George facing right on the button, and Charlotte, his wife, facing right behind him, and it's I think it's to commemorate their wedding in the 18th century. So you have George and Charlotte, and then it has some other stuff underneath, which I've forgotten at this point, but I think we have three of them. So somebody will have their patriotic English jacket on that they lost all the buttons on. Some other ones. Yeah, that's the other kind of thimble with the end on it. This is another one of these early 18th century beads that you see down in Louisiana. You see it on sites down in all of it down the Mississippi in the French trade on sites that are called Tunica. It's a Native American group that were trading a lot with the French. This is a 481. This is a really early trade bead that's probably coming from the Dutch. So what we probably have happening here, at least on that part of the lawn, is we have Native Americans living there in the 17th century, just before the Huguenots get there, and they're getting trade beads probably from folks in Kingston. Conceivably, this could be from Henry Hudson. I'm not sure, but it fits the time period. It's a bead made in Amsterdam in the Venetian style. And again, we have quite a few of these on Huguenot Street. In fact, there's probably a paper right there. Okay, so this is June of 2018. So this is the really fun thing. John Rayburn is Geology department. John just got this new machine. This is ground penetrating radar. So this is a $60,000 machine. It looks like a lawnmower, but it's very quiet. And what it does is, we set up a whole bunch of tapes, and then basically went back and forth across the lawn at different intervals. And I think there's a little computer right there. John is accustomed to, because he's a geologist, he's accustomed to doing things based on like maybe about a 5 or 6 meter tolerance. And I basically set all these tapes out with maybe about a 2 centimeter tolerance, which is less than an inch. So what we did was we laid everything out, measured it off, and then we started doing these every 50 centimeters, going back and forth in different directions. This is 19 inches between. And we just did this also this January before the snow hit up in Kingston at the Pine Street African American Cemetery that you guys might have heard about. We did the exact same thing. We did a 10-meter block every 50 centimeters going in north, south, and east, west, and then we did a 5-meter block on either side of that going north, south, and east, west. So what John's doing here is, and as Maddie, what they're doing is they're going this way in between all these kind of hooking backgrounds. So all these have to go in the same direction. And then basically, then he set up flags going this way and went back and forth. And what that gives you in his computer program are these things called anomalies. And so what we were looking for was an anomaly, which was, I told him I want something on a north-south axis out here somewhere that might be the west wall of the redoubt, or alternatively I said I could go for something going on a north-south axis. I mean, at this particular point I have two possibilities. I can either dig up the whole lawn out there and try to find this thing, or I can see how good the GPR does. And so, right out of this area, right out here, John found a long linear anomaly going this way. We'll get to that. So this is what's really kind of cool about this is it doesn't really show you exactly what's under the ground, but it actually shows you that you've got undisturbed soil in some areas, and then you've got a disturbance. And the whole question is, what is the disturbance? So what we did is we keyed in on some of the disturbances out there. Yeah, so we actually set up this summer kind of like right in here with 3 2-meter squares, and you'll see those coming up. Oh, in a few minutes. So this is July 2018, and these are some of the other squares that we did right in front of the fort. And again, the north wall of this redoubt is probably coming right through here. These guys are inside of it. This is the well, and I have to kind of stay away from this because when you dig a well, you normally have a rather large builder's trench for it, depending on what kind of well you're digging. So I want to keep these guys a little bit away from it because they're going to be hitting this big kind of builder's trench for when they dug this thing out. They didn't actually hit any of it, which was good. So I know that I need to stay away from this. The other thing is when we start to get over to here, you have this big tree. So I was hoping that back here behind me to the left, that John had found an anomaly that was going to be worthwhile. Again, you can see the nice work around those roots. This is right off of the porch. And again, we got more of the some of the post wall lines in here also. And this is again about the closest I think I want to get to the well. As an action photo, holding his trowel. And I think at this point the kids haven't even come up yet for the other square that Kara started. Okay, so there's the smokehouse in the background. So I talked earlier about that other smokehouse that was right out in front of the fort, right near the sign. That's probably what it looked like, maybe about 1800 to about 1830 or something like that, with a stone base and then basically probably a couple rows of brick and then basically wood above it. So this is these guys right here. That's their square. They have a prehistoric pit right here. They have something that looked like a prehistoric pit here that turned into nothing. And these are the little post holes I'm talking about. These actually might be Native American. You can see that she's cut this in half. There's a dark stain going down. Another one there. Another one there. Another one right there going down. And I think she's just about to cut this out and take out a portion of this. And what else is Ariane doing? So Ariane actually, right after this, left for Ohio to dig cholera pits from the 1820s to the 1890s when people died of cholera in the Midwest. So she actually is starting grad school at Mercyhurst in forensic anthropology. Oh, and she's also doing a wall profile. This is that other square that I showed you that's kind of close to the well. So here you have another post wall line coming across. You've got one going this way, and then this kind of keeps going into this wall. So this is another kind of corner. And again, this actually took them probably most of the summer to get down to, because as you're working down in 4-inch layers, there are huge numbers of artifacts. You've got to do profiles, plans, and by the time you get down to this, you just got kind of these dark lines of post molds. This is the, and this I realized this just when I was looking at this, that this is kind of out of order. Lindsay's actually standing on a rock right at the corner of where the corner of the redoubt is right here. This is actually out of order because we're actually backfilling. I just realized before I came down. These are the 3 squares that we opened up on the lawn after John Rayburn helped us out with the ground penetrating radar. We did a 2-meter square. We jumped 50 centimeters and then did 2 back-to-back 2-meter squares, and there's the string line between them. There's Caroline taking some notes, and there's just another shot. So they're working on a prehistoric pit feature. Andrew was actually standing on a large pit feature right here that extends right underneath this little bin right here. And Caroline is starting to clear this down. The corner of the redoubt is right here, and it makes a turn right underneath that that bin. So that's the actual southwest corner. And actually, I think Lindsay's giving a paper in Maine this spring on the ground penetrating radar and finding the redoubt, because she's working on it. That's what it looks like. So this is real, there's the edge of the trench. Here's the edge of the trench. These are the big post holes down here. It makes a turn right here. Because we have a pit feature right in here. And basically this is the actual southwest corner of the redoubt. What I have to, and you can see how deeply dug this is. There's the yellow, it comes down there, and there's more yellow right to there. And what I need to do is come directly back behind where I'm taking this photograph, and then basically see if in previous years we had some of those round post holes that might turn out to be the southwest bastion, which would make a lot of sense. And I think that's my last slide. So, so the bastion, the redoubt comes right through here, and then kind of makes a turn right underneath this particular rock that Lindsay was standing on before, and goes this way towards Huguenot Street, and then meets at the corner near the maple tree near the Dale House. I know that's, I'm pretty sure that's my last slide. Questions?
What does rain do to all this?
Rain? We had one day where we had the SUNY Albany Field School coming down with people from the State Museum. And we showed up, and they were coming down in a couple hours, and it was raining. And I was like, okay, we got to do something here. So I had all of these tarps in the smokehouse, and we pulled them out. And one of them smelled like blue cheese. And so we actually even tried, one girl actually, like, you know, we tried to tie them up to the porch on the DuBois Fort on the south side of it. And we just everything kind of like, you know, linked in. And then Alex came out, and he said, hey, do you guys want some structures? And we're like, sure. So he started running them out. And we just started doing pop-up structures on some of them, and then basically he helped, he actually set this up with the help of students, and by the time the SUNY Albany people got there to the site, it had just kind of stopped raining, but it was a little bit sprinkling, and these guys just like jumped right in and they're digging, and it kind of looked like we hadn't missed a beat. So this is what we did during the rain, and this works pretty well because I have a lot of photos where what we did was we actually took blue tarps and kind of extended them off of this so you could actually get locations underneath here, and also kind of gave you a little privacy if you want them. So that's going back to that. Other questions?
So we don't quite know where the northwest corner is? Are we thinking it's like more or less where the round is now?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's in that area. I mean, I'm assuming this is a square. I mean, it's, again, I said 78 east-west and 75 north-south. So that's about square. And again, I'm not sure if they're setting this up with a transit or just kind of pacing it off and just digging a trench and sticking things in the ground. So it probably is somewhere right about where the well is, or somewhere in that area. A lot of tree roots, a lot of disturbances, and then also a lot of overburden from digging the basement in the fort.
Has anybody excavated the well itself down in the bottom?
No, not to my knowledge. Josephine?
Not to my house.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that machine that discovers anomalies. What kind of, would you define what kind of anomalies it would actually?
It doesn't tell you what the anomaly is, it just gives you the overall shape and the orientation and the size.
Okay, so it could be a piece of dishware, it could be a wall.
Well, just to give you an example, for the Pine Street Cemetery, we spent like a full day up there doing a couple of big blocks, doing those cross cuts every 19 inches on a grid. And when you look at the computer results from about 16 inches down to about 30-something inches down, you can see these big disturbances where there were buildings in the late 19th, early 20th century. But then when you go down to 48 inches to, I'm converting here, 48 inches to, let's say 52 inches, you can see where all the burials are in groupings and then in rows on an east-west axis and on a north-south axis. And those are just anomalies. And again, you know, it's one of those things where there's some areas that don't have them at different levels, but when you get a little higher up or a little lower down, they start to pop up on the computer program as you kind of go from, let's say, 90 centimeters to 1 meter to 1.1 to 1.2. It just changes, and you can see where some burials are there, and then they start to drop out because you're deeper. Ellen, you had a question?
Yeah, how come folks needed to go to Rosendale in an emergency? Weren't there Dutch in New Paltz to be of help?
Well, the thing is, I mean, if you're here in 1678, you're the only place that you can actually get help if you get attacked is either by actually picking it up and running to the Hudson River, which is pretty far away. And then the other thing is to basically send somebody for help or try to get back through Rosendale about where the bridge is now, where I think that's kind of like an easy ford to get across. And then basically try to get back to either Hurley or Kingston, or send somebody to let them know that you're getting attacked so that they can send help. But you're, what, like 15 miles away?
Yeah.
And it's going to take a while to get, you know, across, let's say, the Wallkill or the other way, across the Rondout, and then get people in from the field, depending on the time of year, and then getting themselves armed and getting there. So that's why Andros wanted them to have a redoubt.
So, question, when you're using the ground penetrating radar, what's the actual readout look like? Do you look at it on a laptop, or how does that work?
On top of his machine, there's like a little laptop on there, and he can do things with it there on site. The only problem is when he gets, it's not a problem, but it looks pretty cool, and we get very excited in the field. But when he brings it back and he runs it through some filters and does a little bit of data manipulation, it's really, really cool. I mean, it looks like a blue screen with little yellow anomalies on it. And for the Pine Street Cemetery, I mean, for quite a year, it was a blue screen with a long anomaly going on a north-south axis. For Pine Street, it's just rows of anomalies, kind of like rows of graves of different sizes all together, or in little groupings, or kind of scattered around. It's really, really fun, because you can actually go from, you can just click on every 10 centimeters and everything kind of changes depending on what the radar is seeing.
And it can go at different depths.
Yeah, it gives you everything from 10 centimeters all the way down to, I think on that site he went down probably about 1.5 meters. And again, at that particular point, you're getting down to, at least in Kingston, you're getting down to a different soil horizon, so it's going to bounce back. So you want to stay above that. And we have the same thing here. When you get down to about, probably about 1.5 to 2 meters, you wind up with pea gravel. And then of course it's just going to give you a totally different kind of image. Question back?
Yeah, I was wondering, these artifacts you're finding, any plans to put them on exhibits and kind of public display?
Yeah. Yeah, we've actually had public displays in the fort and some stuff here. We did something on campus this year with pottery. It would be nice to have like just a really big display or just a big display area. It would be really nice. Because believe me, I can fill it up in a couple hours. It's just a matter of getting everything out of the bags, making a list of what's in the cases, and then typing up labels for everything.
It'd be great if someone, like a permanent.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool. To have something lockable and permanent, yeah. Carol?
Is there anything in particular that you'll be looking for this summer during the field school?
I was thinking about trying to find, just making sure I have the south wall of the stockade by putting in like 2 2-meter squares back to back, so we can definitely hit that. Then seeing how it's constructed, and then maybe helping finish that one square we started.
The ones from 2 years ago?
Yeah, and then...
For the reference, I work with little children. I have like 9-year-olds that are all just like digging.
Yeah.
It's not like just me being like.
Yeah, so we'd like to probably wrap that up, and then also maybe I've got some ideas for some other squares also. The other thing is students in the spring. I think some of my students in the spring are going to be doing some testing to the east of the Huguenot Cemetery to look for any features or anything that could be outside the cemetery before it gets turned into something else. So probably doing that in the spring also. But I'm going to set them up, give them everything, and then see what the results are, because they should know at this point what they're doing.
Yeah, one more. I just always think that this is really, really cool. So would you mind telling people how you know when to stop and what that yellowy soil, where it came from?
Yeah, that yellow soil that Caroline is standing on right there, This basically is the subsoil. So all this dark stuff going all the way down into the trench right here, this is all the mixed soil from the original A-horizon soil from when the Huguenots got here. It's a mix of probably pig pens and cow dung and all kinds of other things. Because you have to imagine that all of these areas in here probably had Dutch barns on them, they probably had outbuildings, they probably had pig pens, they had ducks and chickens and all kinds of critters walking around, pooping and everything like that, and building up the soil. And basically, you wind up with, from here to here is a really deep A horizon. Still not as deep as right outside the DuBois Fort, though, which is like that deep. I mean, it's actually difficult to get in and out of the squares by the end of the summer because it's really a lot of stuff. I mean, those people whipped a lot out those windows and doors.
This is sort of strange, but is there anything that you really consider that was unusual that you found over these years?
Oh wait,
didn't anticipate?
Wait, let me step back. The other thing about the this particular trench right here, we have majolica out here, or majolica, however you want to pronounce it. We have Dutch majolica. We have 17th century nails, and we also have 17th century bricks. There are those little red bricks called Hudson Valley Flats. They're just little red bricks that are made to kind of imitate the Dutch ones that are in yellow. So that's kind of cool. So the best find? I think the best find is the redoubt itself, the pit house, and also the earthbound house. I mean, when I started here, I wanted to see what was between all the stone houses, and it's kind of a really interesting mix of Native American items going back over 9,000 years. In between that, you've got Huguenot stuff, you've got Huguenot structures. This summer, we found, which I didn't include in here, in two of the squares, actually one of the squares, we have probably the end of a wigwam. We have paired, oh yeah, go back to that. In this square right back here, we have a pair of post molds hooking around on an angle. So the post molds are kind of set up like this. You have one right here, you have another one right here, and they're kind of working their way around in a bend. So you have pairs of them in a circle. And so I think that's probably the end of probably a small longhouse or wigwam, very similar to the one that is over there on the lawn that's been reconstructed. I think in the same style also. Posts on the inside, posts on the outside with alum in between. Yeah. Yeah, I think the best stuff is the architectural stuff. I mean, we have really cool stuff. We have Dutch beads. We have really fun ceramics. We have well, even in the Abe Hasbrook basement, we have a slave cellar that's got a huge number of beads. That would be a fun talk to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have, I think, 288 beads from the north cellar in the Abe Hasbrook house, and just boxes and boxes of food remains also. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would make a fun talk.
I'm writing it down. Are you available?
Other questions?